Hi and a happy Christmas Eve. I so I've got my little Baileys. Well, it is little really. Well, not really, but there's that much Baileys. And then I added milk, really creamy milk, and some ice cubes, and it's very nice. Anyway, I thought I'd do something a bit different tonight because of it being Christmas Eve. I wanted to look at one of my traditions, and something that's very uniquely British. You'll never see a comic like this in America, not nowadays anyway. The closest comparison I could give it would be National Lampoon. When I was a teenager, I think most people of my generation, if they were slightly into comics, or when they were students in the late 80s, early 90s, there was one comic that stood above them all, even bigger than 2000 AD at the time. It just exploded, and it was around the time of early 90s lads culture as well. So it kind of embraced that mentality of oi oi, and basically any kind of, they could get away with any sexist comments. Lager was king. Just being as leery and obnoxious as possible was cool. And one thing that came out was from a group of brothers and their friends in, I think it was Newcastle. They started doing like a student comic. What suddenly just exploded. They sold it in the pubs and all that, and like the unions, student unions in Newcastle. It just exploded from there. I think it started about early 80s, something like that. Could be 79, but they started really when they were really young. And it was basically a piss take on kids comics in the UK. In the UK, even in America, I'm sure people have heard of the Beano and the Dandy. You had people like Dennis the Menace, not the blonde-haired one in America, but ours was completely different. He had wild black hair, stripy top, and he had a dog called Nasher, and he was Dennis the Menace, and he was a proper menace, not this mamby-pamby, ooh, Mr. Whatever it's called, the little pain in the ass American one with blonde hair. Ours was, he was basically, he needed to be tagged, put it that way. And a lot of British humour comics like Beano, Dandy, Whizzer and Chips, Core, and other things like that, they had weekly cartoon characters, what you remembered, like Minnie the Minx, Desperate Dan, Corky the Cat, and so on and so on. So this was these guys from Newcastle, their idea of doing a comic like that, but very much for adults, and it was called VIZ, and it literally exploded. They kind of got in at the right time, with all the lad culture, with Britpop, Oasis, Blur, and that lot. They kind of like tumbled into it, and with Deadline magazine as well, with Tank Girl. These added like the humour element side of it, and this literally just exploded, not just through the comic, but cartoons appeared on Channel 4, like the Fat Slag, Sid the Sexist, and other characters like that. And there's something appealing about it. It's like 2000 AD was appealing in the 70s and 80s when you were young, because it was slightly naughty, it was slightly different from what you were meant to read. And this was the same for Viz. It really pushed the envelope. Like in the UK, it was like the cartoon versions of the young ones. That kind of alternative humour, what really pushed the envelope, what was acceptable. But they did it in a way where they were never insulted. In a way, they were never really insulted to minorities, to anybody like that. It was more mocking culture itself. They mocked lad culture, but the people who bought the magazine were embracing about it. And it used to be just had like a two-tone colour cover, and I think it's about 40 pages, something like that, and it came out like bi-monthly. I think it still is bi-monthly now, but no, it's much more extravagant. They bring out a collection every year, like a hardback annual, of like the best strips and articles. And like National Lampoon, they have fake articles in as well, and fake letters, which are really clever. It's like it's like a less pretentious Private Eye, which if you in the UK know which magazine I'm on about. But nowadays they've got glossy covers. There's about 60 odd pages in it, so quite a thick magazine. And I stopped buying it years and years ago. It must be about 30 years ago, something like that. I stopped buying it regularly about 30 years ago because I got into comic. I was really. I couldn't find a good place to hide it because I know if when I lived at my parents' house at the time, my mum would go ballistic if she saw it. So, but what I've started doing in the past 10 years is just buying it every year when it's around the Christmas time because they always have like a calendar in it, and it's just to see how it's changed and it's matured so much. The humour has become much better, um, and I think because they've lost their abrasiveness, there's something much more appealing about it. The cartooning in it is really good. So that's what it looks like now. Like I said, you get a calendar in it, and the Christmas issue, and it's a mix of articles and cartoons. So the cartoons are very much in the style of like your classic kids comics from the UK, but of a very much of an adult bent. Like this one's called Mrs. Brady's an Old Lady, and I just like buying it once a year because it does make me giggle. And then you've got Christmas Day with Charles Dickens. Like I said, you've got the letters page, which is very anarchic, and some of the letters are just as funny as the comic strips themselves. And little more articles and comics. And then there's little short gag strips like these here. Hold that up so you can read it. And, oh, sorry. I'm on a Bailey's, forgive me. It carries on that side as well. So the formats change on every page. So there's fake adverts and articles. Do like a spoof newspaper. And then this one here, which the art in it though, to say it basically is just like an adult comedy comic, the art is really sophisticated. They really ape the classic strips of the time. And each artist has their own distinctive style. It wouldn't look out of place in something like a Fantagraphics comic. Then what I like about the Christmas ones, they always make it very Christmas themed. So they like mark a lot of the British traditions of like the Christmas specials on TV and that lot, Top of the Pops. So this is the Top of the Pops heist. It's basically about two detectives called Haystacks and Geller. So in the UK, our wrestling in the 70s and 80s was very different to what it's like in America, and we had a wrestler called Giant Haystacks, and there's also like an illusionist magician called Uri Geller, who I think most people know in the world. So in this comic strip they've turned them into private detectives, so there you go. And an interesting fact, Giant Haystacks used to live across the road from my brother. That's my really obscure claim to fame. But again, the artwork is superb. I'm actually going to read this out. I like to leave this. I bought it ages ago, but I like to leave it for when I'm a bit tipsy and when it's Christmas Eve. It's just like, leave your brain at home, just relax and let your hair down. But like I said, it comes with a calendar as well. This is the strangest YouTube one I've done. It really is. But there's something, it's crude, but there's something weirdly wholesome about it. I think it's because it spoofs things that it loves. Like I said, it spoofs the culture and how ridiculous British culture is, which you wouldn't really get much in America. If you do that, how dare you do that? You're treasonous. But yeah, it's just something fun and like a complete change of pace to what I normally read. And there's a strip here called, and the art again, I love the art in it. it's really, really good. Like I said, if you saw this in a fancy graphics comic, you'd be singing the praises. But the strip is called Foodie Bollocks. But the artwork, look at the artwork, it's so good. I love that style of artwork. You know what, I'm tempted to carry on with this on a more regular basis. I forgot how good it was. Then there's one here called The Mail Online, basically going about middle-aged, as we call them in the UK, gammons. Basically, these are men in the 40s and 50s who are too old to be incels. They're normally married in like a loveless marriage, and they hate anybody who's not white, straight, or like them, basically. And then there's another one here called The Real Ale Twats. Even the titles are brilliant. And then they do spoof news articles about Taylor Swift, which is always good. And then let me just give a bit of history here. This is such a waffly video. I hope you appreciate it. If not, forgive me, because I shouldn't record when I'm drinking Baileys. But DC Thompson, who do the Beano and Dandy, they do yearly collections of this newspaper strip called The Bruins and O Woolly, or O Woolly, the Scottish strips. So what they've done here, they've done it in the style of the Bruins, which is a very classic British cartoon style, but they've done it about the royal family. So they've blended the Bruins with the Windsors, so it's the Broon Windsors. Oh, I'm going to be reading this after a film, to tell you. It's really whetting my appetite. What we've got here on this page, we've got two strips which are like the linchpin characters of VIZ. And usually it's only two small strips. They used to have like 2 or 3 page strips, these two characters, but other things have taken over in popularity. So the first one is the Fat Slags. Then you've got Sid the Sexist, and like I said, both of these ended up with animated series. And again, this is going to get confused when you've had a drink like I have. They carry on onto the other page, which is a bit of a... I'm used to American comics where they don't do that. That doesn't help me very much, so I'll have to remember when I do read it tonight. And the final strip, and the artwork on this one is amazing, honestly. Wow, I love this style of art. It reminds me of Hunt Emerson, that kind of artist. This is called Fruity Bun, the Master Baker, and his gingerbread sex dolls. But look at the cartooning on that. It's crude, it's lewd, but there's something quite pleasingly chaotic and silly about it. British humour, when it works best, is when it's either really sarcastic or just balls to the wall stupid, like Spike Milligan and the Goons, or Monty Python, or the young ones. And this, or Aid Edmondson and Rick Mayall, this fits neatly into that slot. But I don't think it's even heard of in the States. In the UK, people still buy it. Like I said, I buy it once a year. Like I said, I might be tempted to buy it more now, because maybe you need a drink to enjoy it more. But yeah, this is my video. So this is a comic what I don't think you ever see on Comics YouTube, but it's a British institution. It's been around over 40 years now, and this is VIZ, a comic that they would ban in America, and yet over here you can buy it in your local supermarket. So that's it, and with that I wish you all a really happy Christmas. This has been a very, very different video. I'm slightly tipsy, my hair's doing strange things. I'm really enjoying this Baileys. And I hope everybody has a really nice Christmas and New Year. And if you need anybody to chat to, I am at my brother's tomorrow, but I'm not doing any fun box today, so I am on Threads. I do have a Discord, so if Christmas is not a time to be alone. Maybe I'm feeling sentimental because I'm a bit tipsy, but if you need anyone to chat to, join my Discord. There's people on there who'll chat to you. Go to Threads. There's a lot lovely comics community on Threads. I've made some wonderful friends on there who have their YouTube channels on here, DC Patrol and Geeky Old Hog. But don't be alone, even if you can't be physically with somebody, you can still do it online. And yeah, comics, that's what I love about comics. It doesn't matter what gender you are, doesn't matter what sexuality you are, doesn't matter what religious belief you are, what colour you are. The common bond of comics unites us, even if we've got different tastes in comics. Even if I like DC, somebody else likes Marvel, it doesn't matter, it still brings us together and we can have good geeky conversations. And it's like this wonderful secret club what nobody else understands, because words and pictures, that doesn't make sense. But I'm waffling now, so I'm going to stop. So Merry Christmas and have a really happy New Year.